Yeah, thank you, Fred, for organizing this meetup, and welcome everybody. Super excited to see so many people interested in marketing or pizza and beer. I'm not sure which one it is. But yeah, I gave this talk before at the university in Amsterdam, and since then a lot has happened, because since then I worked in a growth hacking agency in the Netherlands where I really sharpened my marketing and digital marketing skills. I then moved to London for a startup incubator called Zinc VC. I don't know if anybody heard about it, but it's basically a venture builder where individuals join a cohort of potential founders, meet their co-founders, and then start businesses from scratch, which solve big problems in the world. And that's where ultimately our current company, which is an education business, came from. And I still run this company, and I'm going to tell you a story about how that went in terms of team, because we were fortunate enough to raise venture funding, which means that we had to assemble a team as well. But originally, we started out with the two of us. So I've not only been on the business side now with the startup, but also back in the Netherlands with our agency, we actually had to fight for clients as well. So I've seen both sides of the same coin. And when we were just the two of us, my co-founder Cedric and I, we needed to hire a UX freelancer. And the way we wanted to do that was basically that we started by going onto LinkedIn, and we just made a post and said, we have recently raised funding and we're looking for a UX designer. And the next morning when I checked my inbox, it was Hail Mary. There was Viva la Mexico everywhere. Like, there were UX designers, there were people who weren't UX designers, there were people who weren't even related to startups at all, like people who just were curious about startups, right, sending us emails. Like, it was a disaster, like so many people around. So we wanted to be more targeted, and then we went on to AngelList and set up a job listing for a UX designer, and next thing we know, we also had an inbox which was just bursting and Viva la Mexico everywhere. So we decided, like, maybe we just try something else, maybe we just go on Fiverr. And that story did not end well. Like, Fiverr was not the place to be, I think, neither as a freelancer or a company. But I talked to a couple of freelancers afterwards, after we finally found somebody, and they went for a similar experience just on the other side. So when they start their freelancing career, they start with posting on LinkedIn. And their inbox looks a little bit like this. Just like London on Christmas, nobody there. Then they go on to AngelList and start applying, and similarly their inbox is dead. So the question is really, why is their inbox dead while my inbox is Viva la Mexico? It always just feels like there's a right time and a right place for you where you will be finally finding a client. The problem is just that you are up here. It just doesn't feel like you're going to have your lucky break for some reason, but somebody else is smashing it. Like that guy you met at the meetup, who definitely didn't look like he knew as much as you did, is completely smashing it. At least that's what he's saying. So the question is, how can you actually beat luck and find clients in an environment which feels like it's impossible to find a client without a little bit of luck? Fortunately, companies are struggling with a similar problem but found a solution, because when you're building a product, it kind of looks like this. If you're a soda, you'll engage in a marketplace which looks a lot like this. So a lot of other people are right next to you promoting their brand. But what you see here is that none of these brands are actually showing their portfolio of happy people who are drinking the soda. They're also not showing the university they went to or something like that. They're actually trying to appeal to the customer in a way more visceral way through a proper brand which speaks to them and satisfies their need. And I think that's a really big differentiator between the way we look here at marketing in this talk and how people might look at marketing. Because a lot of people think that marketing is like sleazy sales of yourself and you have to go out and force something down people's throat, and especially if it's yourself, you don't want to be too braggy about it. But that's actually not what marketing is. Marketing is actually the art of helping others to find you. It has nothing to do with sales. It has nothing to do with trying to be the show off. It has everything to do with actually showing people that whoever they're looking for is actually you. Like, you are that person they're missing out on. Now, some people are still not convinced probably by that. Like, I don't know, are you convinced? Sorry, you're definitely not in the right time and at the right place. But okay, cool. Well, we're going to make sure that at the end of the talk you definitely are. Because no matter whether or not you believe that you should take care of your marketing and your brand, the truth is actually that you already have a brand. You're just not taking care of it. So your family, your friends, your clients, your colleagues, everybody has an image of who you are. Everybody has an image of what you're good at and what you're not good at. And most of the time that image is actually not that great for you, because they have a very muddled image of all the things you are rather than that one thing you actually want them to know. Which means that by not taking care of your brand, you actually dilute your brand. So next time somebody posts about an awesome freelance gig for you, your friends might see it, but they not think about you because they don't remember that you're the right person for that gig. So marketing is really all about making sure that you gain share of mind. Yet normally people approach their career a little bit like a burger. So most people want to be the burger on the left side, which is the juicy, yummy burger somebody poured a lot of heart into, instead of the burger on the right side, which is a McDonald's burger. Now the thing is that in the freelance career, that basically means that most people focus on building their skills, which is their product, and building their expertise, but they don't want to actually go out and sell. But the truth is that at the end of the day, the best product is actually not the one which sells the most, but it's the best promoted product. McDonald's doesn't make the best burgers, but they found out how to sell those burgers. Which means that if we would spend at least as much time as we do in self-development, in self-marketing, we would be significantly more successful in our everyday life. So let's look a little bit into how we're going to create a personal brand. This is a concept called the marketing mix. Anybody who works in marketing is definitely familiar with this. We won't have time to go through every single bit of this concept, but we'll try our best to make sure that you can walk away today with a lot of valuable insights. So the first one is the product and the customer need, which is basically you and your client's need. Because what a lot of people forget is that you're actually hired to fulfill a job. In this example, the job is to drive a nail into the wall. There's a lot of people that could do this job and a lot of tools which could do this job, but there's probably one tool which does this job really, really well. If you had to choose right now between a hammer and an iPhone, which one would you choose to drive the nail in the wall? The answer is pretty easy, right? Because a hammer is built to drive a nail in the wall, and an iPhone is built to make it easy for you to look at pictures of your ex-girlfriend. Basically, an iPhone would be way too expensive at this job, and it might actually break as well, which means that it can't even fulfill the job. So you need to make sure that whoever is looking at your portfolio is actually the right person for you, which means you need to define your personal niche. And your niche is basically looking at yourself from your client's needs. One guy, which we actually ended up hiring, is named Simon, is a UX designer, who got my attention on LinkedIn by simply adding this line to his message, which he sent to me. Like, this was just a cold request. He just reached out to us after everything in my inbox was overflooding. And he just simply added, "I help tech startups design better digital products without hiring a full-time designer." Basically, he just spelled out for me what I was looking for without me actually spelling out what I was looking for. He did a better job than I did in the job description by explaining what I was actually looking for. I wasn't yet ready to hire a full-time designer, but we needed somebody who can actually make our product better in the beginning until we're ready for a full-time designer. Now, what's the obvious problem with this? Like, if Simon would go out and send everybody in his client list this line, what do you think is the problem with that? Do you have any idea?
I mean, it's not targeted to people.
Probably, yeah. It's like, if you're not a tech startup, and if you want to hire a full-time designer, then quite frankly, that's not going to appeal to you at all. And you might actually be really annoyed and think that that's just Viva la Mexico as well. So what will happen is that if you find a niche, you ultimately end up pushing a lot of people away. You end up having haters. And that's something very scary. Like, most people don't actually want somebody to hate them. Most people are actually trying to appeal to everybody because we want everybody to be nice to us. We want to be liked by everybody. But at the same time, that means that we're just kind of like meh to everybody. Because as soon as we're trying to appeal to a niche and they will love us, a lot of other people will hate us. But in order to actually successfully build a brand, you need to be aware about who you want to attract as much as who you want to push away. Because if you can't decide between who wants to love you and who wants to hate you, you're just a dummy in the middle. And I've experienced this myself because I've given this talk in a TEDx in Amsterdam. And then underneath my TED talk on YouTube, I got this comment, which basically reads out, "What inappropriate humor. I'm surprised the TED organization allowed this one through. You can Google the 4 Ps of marketing and get more info without having to listen to this guy speak like a 15-year-old. I'm sure a lot of people in this audience agree, Probably a lot of you are already tired of me, but that just proves the point that while some people will love you, others will definitely hate you. One way of really like experiencing that for yourself without risking too much, because you don't want to immediately go out and get a lot of haters, is to try this exercise. Basically, take any app you like, for example, LinkedIn today at this networking event, and then experiment around with it for like half a day to a day and learn about all the secret features and all the hacks with the LinkedIn app, which nobody knows about. Because we all use LinkedIn, but nobody actually knows the hacks about it, like the QR codes, the nearby feature, etc. And then next time you go to a networking event, try out these hacks. Either people who are power users of LinkedIn who really, really like you, or they'll be seriously concerned about your frequency of attendance at meetup events. But either way, you'll experience what it's like to be either loved or hated for telling somebody that feature. Now, another box in the marketing mix is promotion and communication. When we promote ourselves, a lot of times we don't focus on the right thing. This is a lesson I learned from Scott Harrison from Charity Water. If you don't know him, Scott is he founded basically the Tesla of charities. Charity Water is a fantastic, fantastic organization which brings water to people around the world. And Scott used to be a nightclub promoter and used his nightclub promoter skills in order to create a brand around a charity. And his main lesson was that you should focus on the outcomes, not the problems. Because Scott taught me a very important lesson, which is that most charities actually focus on the problem. In this metaphor, for example, the problem, if you're familiar with Super Mario, would be that you're a small Mario, which is not cool. And people do not like talking about problems. If you go to a networking event and ask people about their problems, they get really sick of you very fast because they're not here to talk about problems, they're here to drink the free beer and pizza. If you then start talking about solutions, which in a charity environment, for example, would be talking about, how you bring food to emerging markets or how you provide a hospital to them, that's also not very sexy because the solution by itself doesn't really lead to anything, like any emotional reaction. But what really works for people is when you start talking about outcomes, which in this case is Mario throwing fireballs. That is very, very cool. Because if you can show people how you make them succeed, that's when they really get interested. So to go back to Simon's example, he started with, I help tech startups design better digital products without hiring a full-time designer. So our product will be better. He really focused on what is going to be the outcome for us. We don't have to go for all the hassle of hiring somebody, and the product will be better. And what I love about Simon is that ever since we hired him, he actually found a new target audience. So if you're a UX designer, you might want to steal this one. But he actually found a new audience which says, I help SaaS companies turn more trial users into paying customers through better UX design. Which means he actually understands what SaaS companies want as well and adapted his entire website and everything to cater only to SaaS companies and nobody else. And the last one I want to discuss with you in the marketing mix is placement and convenience. Because even though you have a fantastic product and you know how to communicate it well, there's actually still something missing in the mix, which is where to position yourself in the market. And it's not what you think actually when I talk about where to position yourself, but it's also about how to interact with your audience once they've found you. So this is a form called Pirate Metrics, which is basically from the growth hacking environment and specifically designed for tech startups. But you can use it for yourself as well when you attract clients. Because when most people think about marketing, they actually only think about the first stage of this funnel, which is the attention stage. So do I sign up to Upwork or People Per Hour or Fiverr? Please don't sign up for Fiverr. Or TopTal, and then I have to attract clients somehow through flashy promotions or something. But then the client gets in touch with you, and you're trying to activate him, and that actually requires a very different strategy because you'll need to have a response for the client and a proposal ready so they can act swiftly on that. And then you start generating revenue and perform on the product, on the project. But actually, that's not where the journey ends. That's just the middle of the journey. This is where it gets really, really interesting. Because when you only focus with your clients on attention until revenue, you'll always have to attract new clients. Where it gets really interesting is when you then focus on retention and think about how can I upsell my clients? And then if you already upsold your clients and you think there's nothing to gain from them anymore, how can I make it easy for them to refer me as well? Because in the beginning, when you start building your funnel, you have to fill the funnel yourself. You have to go find a source, either LinkedIn or TopTal or Upwork. But after a while, if you do this funnel management really well and actually are able to get a lot of referrals from your clients, it looks a little bit more like this. It looks like a flywheel, which means that you can actually completely let go of your marketing and just rely on the funnel you've built to attract new clients through referrals. But even if you've done this really, really well and created a funnel which is perfect, you'll still find that sometimes people just don't respond. You send a proposal and all of a sudden people don't actually become activated. They just let it sink. Or you actually deliver something but they just don't send you any money afterwards for your invoice. That's because people are just people, and every time when you want to move down the funnel, you need somebody else to act on that. So you send something and somebody else has to do an action in return. And that can be really, really difficult, because getting people to act is inherently difficult because people are just lazy. And the formula for getting people to act is action equals motivation minus friction. So how much do people want to pay you, which is probably 0. People really don't want to pay you. And then how difficult is it for them to pay you, which is probably also difficult depending on which payment provider they have. So as you can see, it's actually not that easy for people to act. So your job when you're managing your funnel is actually not to get people to act. It's to ask, how can I either increase motivation or decrease friction? And the reality is that increasing motivation is super, super hard. Like just following up more of a client and then asking them like, did you like the proposal? Have you had time to look at the proposal? Is not a great way to get people to act. It's far easier to actually get people to act if you're decreasing friction. And one way this looks is when we hired a creator in residence for a video platform. After the first interview with her, this freelancer, she sent me this email. And you don't have to read through the whole email, but I loved every single thing about this email, because what she did is that she recited all the reasons why she thinks she should be hired. Every single reason she thinks, like, why she's the right person for this job, she put in there, so I didn't have to look at my notes, which were like all over the place because I had to interview her as well. She actually recited them, and then she added here are some of the many videos I have produced for you to discuss with the team. She actually already thought about what would that discussion look like with the team, and what would they like to see in that discussion, and then added videos in there to prove that she's actually the right person for us as well. So I thought that it's a good way for us to end this talk by doing a little exercise. So I would ask you all to get your phone out and follow me along on a little exercise with friction. You can get your phone out as well.
Motivation.
You have no motivation? That's okay, you can't increase motivation. You're already learning the good lesson. That's right. So the link is actually a feedback form for this talk, because it turns out that it's really, really difficult to get feedback on your presentation, which means that it's far easier to get people to actually answer your feedback form if they already have it open on their phone and are sitting in the presentation and can fill it out. You don't actually have to fill it out right now if you want to, but please leave it open, and I would really, really appreciate if you fill it out afterwards. And I also included a small ebook as a gift for you if you fill in the feedback form. So that just leaves us with one last question, which is, if we know that through marketing we can actually defeat luck and acquire a lot of new clients and really build a sustainable career for ourselves, why aren't more people doing it? Why isn't it a thing now that people are all marketing themselves? Why is it a thing that we're still blaming the algorithm, blaming the bad mood of the client, blaming luck that other people are more successful than us? And the sad truth is that in reality, luck is nothing more than just a pill we swallow to numb ourselves. We tell ourselves that other people are lucky because that just makes it easier for us to accept that we're not successful, and it's also very effortless. If you think about how difficult it is to get other people to act, think about how difficult it is to get yourself to act. It's almost impossible for people to start branding themselves if they don't know how to do it, and also if they don't see why they should do it and why they should defeat luck. But fortunately, I hope through this presentation you learned a lot about personal branding and its importance, and agree that there's actually no luck, but only good marketing. Thank you so much. Cool, thanks. I also recently wrote a book, and I'm going to publish it next week, so if you want to check that out, just follow the website down below, and I'll make sure to send it to you when it's ready.